For many of us who have worked in the production industry for a lot of years and spent months on the road, we honestly become family. My next guest is just one of those people who I can truly say is like a brother to me. Rob Marish is well known across the production world as someone you can rely on to deliver the goods, meaning he brings it and finds a way to get the money shot. We had so much fun, and I even learned things about him that I never knew. I can't wait for you to meet him. Enjoy. Welcome, Rob Marish.
Wow,
Thank you for being here today.
Quite the introduction. Thank you very much. And I feel that you are a great friend as well.
It's true. I always have thought of you as my little brother.
Yes, and
I've always a little bit of a mischief maker, which I really enjoy about you. I really am so happy that you're here and really excited about this. So we first met at Banyan Productions.
Yes.
And I forget the name of the show you were working on. You were a PA, right?
I was a PA on Travelers.
Okay.
Which they were producing, as well as one of the early ones was On the Inside, I think, which was a celebrity interview show.
Exactly. That's the one I think I met you were working on. You were working with Dawn on that, right? Dawn.
Yes, there's a whole cast of characters. I was very fortunate that I guess Jean McHale-Waite was the director of development or the executive producer on a couple shows, and I was her lawn guy in college. And I had made a chauvinistic remark to her, which made her remember me very well, and she still gave me an opportunity to come in and work for free.
What did you say exactly?
She was wearing a Channel 10 shirt because she used to work for Channel 10. And I had been talking to her about something, and I said something like, "Oh, does your husband work for Channel 10?" And she's like, "No, D-bag." Like, I did. And I was like, I'd like to work in television. And you be careful what you ask for.
Did you stalk her and know she was in the business, and that's why you wanted to mow her lawn?
No, completely random. Just was a complete it was just a fortunate event in my life, which I have tons of them. So there's tons of great opportunity if you're looking for them.
Absolutely. It's all about energy, isn't it?
Sure is.
It's what you attract, what you focus on. That is a funny story. And she must have got a kick out of you. When you were a kid, did you reenact things? Did you make movies? Like whatever got you into this business? I know you went to Cabrini College, right? Which you don't often hear about as being like a school where people go for production, and they do have a fairly nice program.
Yeah, I was really like I said, I've stumbled into a lot of fantastic events, whether it's by design or by accident. I'll start with Cabrini. Cabrini, I went to a local school because I lived in the area. Luckily, when I was there, I had looked at Temple and looked at all these other schools, but I saw Cabrini, and they had a great little tiny communications program. But Kathy Youngman was the one running it at the time, and she used to work at Channel 48, if you remember Channel 48.
Oh my gosh.
So she kind of knew what she was doing pretty well, and she had a really good setup there with a multicam studio. They just got a bunch of gear. And when I had looked at it, I was like, holy crap, they have all this new stuff. And the program was so small that I'm like, I'll get a lot more hands-on time if I went to a smaller school, which I did. It is kind of what you make it, though. And I was very aggressive. So circling.
You aggressive? Seriously?
I love that. Oh my gosh, wait, you have laugh? I have this too if you want more laughs. Hey! Laugh track! Hey!
Oh my God, that's hysterical.
First, I tell everybody who's getting in the business, don't get in this business.
Yeah.
Because it's the best and worst thing you'll ever do. Number two is you definitely need to make it your own. You have to take it by the balls and do something with it. You have to be annoying. You have to be aggressive. You're just going to get walked all over. And Kathy Youngman, actually, it's funny. that is the one bit of advice she gave that always stuck in my head. She's like, there's going to be somebody who's younger, faster, cheaper, smarter, uh, better than you. So you have to be the best. If you're going to do it, you got to be the best or the most unique.
Right. You have to
So
stand out in the crowd. That is 100% sure.
I got lucky though getting to Cabrini. My parents let me play with their video camera as a kid. I had
Mhm.
a group of friends that were all a bunch of derelicts, and we used to make stupid home movies and do a lot of dumb shit. And, we rode skateboards and BMX bikes and
Right.
played in bands.
That's
And
rad.
my parents just let us have the video camera, and we did a lot of cool stuff. And I was like, I want to work in TV, but I had no idea what that even meant. So I also got lucky in high school that KYW had a program where they had high school students come in and record their own news segments. So I went to KYW for a little bit
Really?
and did
I
some
don't
stuff
remember that.
there. And then I was an intern at WCAU Channel 10 as well. So I did work at the news desk in high school because I just knew I was in, and weirdly, these opportunities kept popping up, and I just kept taking them. At Cabrini, I got pretty lucky that one of the guys I had been going to school with was a year or two older than I was, Gary White. And Gary graduated before I did, and he started working on the show Medical Detectives. And
Right.
Medical Detectives, which I can't believe is actually still on air as the
It is.
Forensic Files, and it kind of
Exactly.
spawned all of these medical shows. Gary got me in there as a PA early on, and
I remember that.
the production manager um, let me do kind of whatever I needed to do to get the job done. So we were doing all the recreations for crimes. So I would get stacks of crime scene photos, and I would have to make these sets and prop them out. And then because I had a little construction experience, I would build the sets because they had a basement there. And then they started letting me AD. And we just learned a lot from working on that for years. And then I had two prongs of the career. Gary White got me going down that way, and Gene got me going the other way in reality. So I was kind of working in a little bit of film, recre world, and then, television world with Gene. And then,
So wait a second. Hold on, hold on. You were working at Medical Detectives when you met Gene?
yes.
So you were freelancing then. You were a
Yes.
freelancer there, you were mowing lawns, and then you also met Gene, and then you were freelancing at Banyan when you started?
I mean, she let me come in as an intern, but what had happened was I made a couple great connections. Mike Perlman was
Mm-hmm.
a director of photography there. He had just bought all of his own equipment, and I took care of it meticulously to the point that he started requesting me to go on jobs. That was number one. And then at Medical Detectives, Anil Srivatsa, the PM, he just kept hiring me because I could just do so much stuff that he was like, "Oh, you're just the problem solver." Um,
Absolutely. You are a problem solver. I always refer to you and your business partners, which one of them is my husband, Daryl Road, but I always speak of you guys as sort of the MacGyvers, not to use, I use that term, interchangeably sometimes, but for those of you who don't know what MacGyver is, it was an old TV show, and the guy was sort of a jack of all trades. He could do anything,
yes.
which Rob can, he can. He's a MacGyver, and that makes sense to me, Rob. That's how you broke into the business. When I first met you, and you were doing PA work, I adored you from the minute I met you because you're such a crazy guy. And I know that one of your sort of burning desires at that point was to be a shooter. You wanted to be a cameraman, director of photography, and you were having a little bit of an issue, you were pigeonholed a little bit. So I remember you really wanting to go out as second camera on a wedding story. And I went to the powers that be and I said, give this kid a shot. Let him go out on my shoot with me. It's all good. I think he's going to be great. And sort of, you were beyond great. I mean, everyone wanted to work with Rob. Talk with me a little bit about some of the crazy things. I mean, a wedding story was an anomaly. I really wish they would bring that show back because it had a positive vibe. It gave people hope about their lives, and they kind of it we became there was like a cult following. We would get boxes of mail for applications, but we went on some crazy wedding story shoots. So, I wrote some notes here because I mean we just did so many of them. We were on a shoot in Fort Lauderdale, and you had to go to like Vero Beach to shoot some B-roll of these lifeguards who were getting married, and then we were going to do their wedding at a castle in Leeds Castle in the UK. So we were in Florida, we were in Fort Lauderdale. I distinctly remember we were in the sleaziest hotel right near like 95. Do you remember that? If you looked out the window, it was like, oh my God, it was awful. To the point where my room was infested with cockroaches. Do you remember this, Rob?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So I called down, I'm like freaking out. And they're like, well, we're going to send somebody up. And you had called me because we were going to talk about the Vero Beach shoot. And you're like, let me come up. I'll keep you company. I'll make sure none of these roaches attack you. Because Rob knew I was freaking out about these cockroaches being in my bed or whatever. He thought it would be funny to take the pen cap off of those stupid pens that they give you in the room. And he flicked it at me. And he's like, oh my God, here's a roach or something. I went flying backwards, if you recall, and I slammed my head on the dresser. And the look on your face was priceless because I've never seen you scared about anything.
I thought you got hurt. I thought you were really hurt.
And you also thought I was going to freak out at you. And you're like, are you okay? You're like terrified. And I sit up and I just am laughing hysterically. You're like, oh my God, I thought you were going to kill me. But that was, you always brought some shenanigans to the table. Another story I remember is not one that I was there with, but I know that you had gone to a restaurant. You were with Dawn, you were with Daryl and Michael Kime, who was doing audio. Mm-hmm. And you guys decided that you were going to you were going to put on a little show for everyone, and you basically pretended that you were lovers or together and started like having this huge fight in the restaurant. Yes. Did you get thrown out of that restaurant?
I think we talked them out of throwing us out, but it was close. Yeah, that was kind of the fun of being on the road. I mean, a lot of the shows that we were doing, because they were a little bit popular, you sometimes were accepted in a city quickly, or somebody's like, oh, this is what you're doing here, that's great. And it was like you're traveling, you're on the road with a group of people, like a circus almost. So
circus is a good word.
Yeah, we would have a lot we would work hard and play hard for sure.
We certainly did. And we have, just along those same lines, we have developed relationships with so many people that we've worked with along the way. And that's one of the things I want to really focus on with you, because you're one of the best schmoozer networker people that I've ever met. You develop relationships and maintain them in a way that I don't know how you keep up with it, because it's like everybody knows who Rob Marish is, and you've worked on a gazillion shows. Everybody wants to work with you. How are you able to create those, not just create the relationships, have the balls like you did with Gene, just to walk up to somebody and introduce yourself? I mean, that is a skill, or it's just sort of an innate, personality trait that you have. How has that helped you further your career, and just sort of, even as one of the owners of Keystone Pictures, how has that helped all of you along the way?
Yeah, I mean, it's a relationship based business. Everybody jokes, oh, it's who you know. It is who you know, and I think I realized that early on. I think because I'm authentic and real, like I'll kiss your ass, but I'll also kick your ass and tell you how it is. Like, I try and be truthful. Always try and help, as opposed to being like, this is my job, this is what I'm doing. It's like, hey, we're all in this together. What can we do to get this done? how can we work harder to get out of here and enjoy our time together? Because a lot of people, I think, get caught up with like, hey, this is work. And then you're on set, you punch a clock, and I'm going home, as opposed to being like, hey, let's hang out. Let's enjoy what we're doing. Let's enjoy this time. Banyan, in its heyday, wound up blossoming to having a couple hundred people working there. And then ultimately, as they sort of started to fizzle, all those people that we worked with on, I don't even know the number, 40 to 50 different series,
Yes.
thousands of episodes of television or days of production, that they all sort of started going around the country. And that was really cool to be like, oh my gosh, so and so wound up in LA. And they would call and say, oh, do you mind coming to
Right.
here and we'll do a shoot together? And somebody else is in Florida, in New York. And that network of people for that chunk of time is priceless. I mean, it's kind of, television is a little bit of a battlefield. So you've gone
Hmm.
to battle with these people. You've spent a lot of time with these people, nights, weekends, holidays, airports, drinking after work or up
Yeah.
early for breakfast together,
Right.
and they become your family.
Yeah.
And I think I definitely thrived on those relationships, which is why I like creating more of those relationships. It's unfortunate there's not enough time in the day to get to everybody, but if any of those people call, it's like no
It's
time
like,
has passed.
hello, like
Yeah,
immediately you jump for the phone.
yeah.
Absolutely. I made a note for myself to ask you is, do you see our lifestyle, especially working on a reality TV show, do you see it as a trade-off or a sacrifice?
Um,
Because you would go away, let's just say, for instance, you have been the DP and director on many reality TV shows and have gone on the road and been away from home for what, 3, 4, 5 months at a time, maybe coming home for a couple days or flying your family to see you. Like, you know, is it both a trade-off and a sacrifice?
yeah, I mean, I try not to look at it with a negative connotation.
Hmm.
It's a lifestyle. And I don't think your kids don't know the difference, because that just is the reality of it.
Right.
Your friends and family know the difference for sure, that it
Hmm.
just is kind of what it is, but it also comes with a lot of cool perks, that you do get to travel and you do get to see the world in a different way. And sometimes it's like you said, hey, let's go to England for this shoot and then stay a couple days in this castle and hang out because you have the access to it, or wherever. I mean, name a location. We've covered. I think the only continent I haven't been yet is Antarctica.
Wow.
So
You'll get there.
I know.
That was one of the things that I was going to touch upon too is you have traveled the globe, covering, you've been to multiple countries many times. I've always had sort of this envy for, oh, I should have done something else so I could just be out in the field all the time. But you really have covered so many extraordinary stories in your career. So, how many
Wait, is my
countries?
career over?
No, it
Okay.
isn't. Like, you've been to so many places. Some have been totally fascinating to me. So Cuba is one of them. You
Yes.
had done a shoot in Cuba, and I've always wanted to go there. Tell me a little bit about that experience. Did you have an issue getting in and out of Cuba? Did you have to have a fixer? Were there any moments where you were, worried about your safety or the gear safety or anything like that?
Um, I was not worried at all. We had a pretty amazing team. We were doing a project for PBS, where it was basically a concert, I guess is the best way to put it, where the band The Mavericks was kind of the headliner. The team was from a bunch of music television producers based out of Nashville. Most of the crew was based out of Nashville. One of the director, Randy Hale from there, he
Hmm.
put together a pretty good team. Randy had some family stuff going on. He just needed some backup. So it was actually kind of rare that I was almost coming in not doing what I normally do. I just was there as his support system a little bit, which was great because it was like I was almost the extra guy there, where it was like, hey, take a camera and go shoot some B-roll, or hey, can you go work with the lighting crew and make sure this stuff is set up? So I was kind of his eyes and ears a little bit to help him with that project. I think it wound up being a crew of like 50 or 60 people. We put a concert on in the middle of the jungle, this abandoned place. We did have a fixer. It was a little sketchy in terms of, you know, well, you just have to sort of be in that experience if you've traveled internationally with a TV crew to know that you're trying to do everything by the book, because if you don't, you get stuck a little bit. But you also have to be slick enough and greasy enough that when the guy's like, grab your camera and let's go now, that you just go, okay, and you don't ask any questions and you go off.
Put your head down and go.
Yeah.
Was there ever a time where you were out of the US where you felt compromised or thought,
Yeah, I
what the
think
hell did I get myself into? I mean, you did the show Trip of a Lifetime, Great Cruises. I mean, Great Cruises was a freaking vacation, wasn't it? It nearly broke my marriage, just saying, because Daryl was on the road and like on luxurious cruise ships, and I was like in the trenches with two little kids.
It nearly broke my shoulders because we would shoot 40 to 50 tapes an episode, and all handheld all over the time, sometimes literally climbing up volcanoes and stuff like that, but no complaints at all. We had a great time. Yeah, we were stuck in Lima. In Lima, we got there finally, and they confiscated our gear, and they're like, come back tomorrow and you can get it. And you're like, well, I might not ever see that stuff again. You just left it at some random office, at the airport, hoping that, and it wasn't really like you think of an airport. It just was like on a cart stuck over by a desk in this hallway. And you're like, wow, I'm leaving, $100,000 worth of stuff there, and we'll see what happens. India was a little rough just in terms of the amount of people that were always around. So you do need a good team of support and good wingmen and women with you wherever you go. Funny enough, Canada was hard to get into, which is just, you got to know the laws and you got to know red tape. And believe me, I love playing loose and fast and fun, but you also have to have your documents in order if you want to get in and out. And you also have to be cool. Like, you can't throw any attitude. Right. You got to know when to smile and when to shut the hell up.
Yeah, you can't look nervous, or they like to ruffle your feathers.
Yeah, you just have to have all your shit together.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, you have to have it together. You have to make sure your fixer has it together, because I think we've heard other stories. One time Balashevsky went into Canada and he got deported from Canada because he didn't have his paperwork all worked out. But that wasn't his fault. That was the production company in Canada didn't have it together. So, yeah, Canada was on my voted the hardest.
Well, I remember, and maybe Daryl will tell this story, but I remember he was on a shoot with Sean and Pierce.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing spa finders, I believe it was, and they were going into Mexico. Mexico's also really tough. Yeah, you need to grease a few palms there, but they confiscated their gear as well. And I know they were very worried about that. Yeah, you do have to be buttoned up. So let me just move on a little bit, because you talk about, just staying centered and positive and focused and keeping a good attitude. You pretty much have this never say no attitude about everything. If somebody asks you something, absolutely, sure, we can do that. I really rarely hear you say no. So how do you stay clear on your why? And, I'm channeling a little bit of my Tony Robbins stuff, but how do you stay clear on your why and what you want out of life, and developing all these things, and, keeping that positive attitude, because that all rubs off onto the people who are around you. As well as I do, when you work with someone who's difficult director, difficult talent, the air in the room is just different. But when Rob Marish walks into the room, it's like the fog lifts, The air is it.
My ego. My ego's
I'm
getting.
sorry. I mean, you're a jerk. What can I say?
I
No,
can be.
seriously, you're not a jerk. Anybody can be a jerk. Listen, there's lots of stories of me being bitchy or whatever. But the bottom line is you seem to be able to maintain this, again, never say no attitude and positivity. How do you do it?
Uh, that's a great question. I could probably, I'm going to probably bounce around with it. I think the easiest way to start was when I was 13. I had a younger brother who had died, and I had a lot of death early on in my life. And I think it shaped me to realize at a young age, holy shit, this could all end really fast. From a sibling to my parents, each had siblings pass away. They had best friends pass away. My grandfathers, like it was like death, 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 which could be really depressing. Luckily, I sort of was able to take it and I'm assuming turn it into a positive just for myself as a drive to be like, hey, life is short. You should live. Um, Number two, circling back to Cabrini College, I was in an improv troupe for years and I loved improv. I loved all the exercises we would do. One of the staples of improv is yes and. When you're on stage, you're out there by yourself and one other person or whoever, and you have to accept their suggestion, which would be the yes. But in order to proceed, you need the and. So you accept something and you push it forward, you progress. And it's a good metaphor, I think, for life to be like, yeah, let's roll with it and let's take it up a notch. Um, I love Mind Feed as well. Tony Robbins, you mentioned. I was a pretty good student in high school. My dad got me this class where there's a will, there's an A. I don't know if you remember this program or not.
No, I never heard of it.
I was pretty good, and my dad said to me, he goes, well, if you're already a great student, what would happen if you took a class for bad students? Could you even push yourself higher? And that's how I sort of got introduced to Mind Feed. And then I started the whole Tony Robbins, Wayne Dyer stuff. And, you have to take some of it with a grain of salt, I guess.
Right.
But I still to this day listen to it, positive affirmations. I also do a lot of yoga. And that was just more of I had to do yoga because of my body. This job is physically demanding. Whether you're sitting on an airplane or a car for 15 hours in a day, or you're carrying a camera for 15 hours a day,
Yeah.
you need something to sort of, stretch out and recenter. So that's sort of how I keep it positive. The active positivity just comes from, I think we all have those people that we meet that you feel better when you leave them. And
Yes.
if you realize that, it's like, well, shit, maybe I could be that person that when people leave me, they feel better, they feel empowered, they feel like I had a good time or a good laugh. So why not spread it around? Smile's infectious, right?
It is. I love that about you. So you met Ty Pennington, who is perhaps one of your best friends, right? Um, you've been friends with him for a very, very long time, and you do a lot of work with him. How have you been able to, and obviously he's just one example because you're very close with him, but you've worked with a lot of top name talent. And so how do you navigate those waters, with your personality? How do you do
Wow,
that?
it's another great question. I mean, they're just people. So
Right.
sometimes you connect with people and sometimes you don't. I mean, I think he has the same childish attitude when it comes to doing mischievous things, which clicked. And we have a couple other interests in terms of travel, surf, photography, music, that kind of stuff. Other times, some people just like to deal with somebody that might not be kissing their ass or
Right.
might not be painting the fluff on.
Right.
You get to that point where I think some people also just know, like, oh, this guy knows how to do his job or this girl knows how to do her job. Like, great, done, next, let's cut through the bullshit, get it done. Great, I trust that guy. And as you know, working in this business, you start to develop either a shorthand or a familiarity where you want to just, it's easier. Hey, I can work with Jody because I know that while she's doing this, I'm off doing this, and she knows I'm getting it done. I know you're getting it done. Great, we're doing it. And I think that translates no matter what level.
Right.
And we've all
There's a level
been,
of trust. It's
yeah,
it's trust
it's trust. But that's not
because
just celebrity.
right.
That's down to the interns. And I always even say to the interns, I'm like, let's not even call you an intern because it has a negative connotation. We should just call all interns production assistants. And we need to teach them how to navigate these waters. Yeah, some of them are going to be great, some of them aren't. Um, but hey, we all know we're going to be working for that person in the future somewhere or with that person.
Right.
So why not shape them into the kind of person you want to work with again and again, you know?
Do you, I know that you and Keystone Tie, we've all done a lot of philanthropic work as well. And one of the amazing projects that you guys worked on together was, how do you say it, Abode?
Abode, yeah.
That was such an amazing story. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that was really touching. And it looked like you had a lot of fun.
We always have fun.
Always.
Yeah, Ginny Shiverdecker had met Ty, and I think his agent was trying to get Ty to help with this cause. They create small structures in an efficient and economical way and put them in places that need homes, but they're not like your average home. There's something that can be almost built in a day. They're almost like these little kits. And it was developed by a designer, I believe, out of South Africa, whose name, by the way, is Jacques Hammer. His name is Jack Hammer. That's fantastic. I'm not kidding. I'm serious. But it was kind of like, hey, if you kick in some money, we can get some match funds. And Ty was into it. And then they're like, well, why don't you guys just come along and help document this? And, we figured out a way to sort of make it work that, we could come and help spread the word and also put some time in. So we went to Tanzania and we built a micro village. We built a birthing center and we built some teacher housings near a mission or in conjunction with a mission in the area. And then, of course, while we were there, the company was also promoting the idea of this like philanthropic tourism thing, which is like, well, if you're going to come put the time in and help some people, you might as well do something really fun. We went to a mirage, I guess it was, in the middle of the desert, which was like really neat. It was amazing. Andy and I went, shot it. We helped build it. We enjoyed it. It was really a good time. It was a lot of work, a lot of sweat for sure.
It was a big trip too. It was a long trip.
Yeah.
But that's why I wanted to talk about it, because so much of what we do, people think our jobs are glamorous. Oh, you work in TV and you work with Ty Pennington, Robert Irvine, whatever it is. Oh my God. We don't often hear about really what goes on behind the lens. When that camera's off, even in, let's say, Trading Spaces, how many of the crew put their cameras down or put their audio bags down? We're like painting in the background. There's nothing that we won't do to make great TV, right?
Yes, and that still happens to this day, and I think that's why some people work. Some people work with the same crews again and again. It's like this is a little bit of an addiction, television. But it's also pretty, it's tangible to say like, wow, if I do this, you will see this. And then there it is. It winds up, on television.
How do we, in this ever-changing world where content is king now, right? There's so many places to get your content out in the world. And people are accepting of footage that we may think is inferior because they're not using a real camera, as we say, like they're using their iPhone, but people are making movies with iPhones. Where do you see this industry going, like long term? I mean, there's cameras now, they're all, controlled by a joystick. You don't even need a camera person. Like, how does that affect us moving forward with what we do? I mean, obviously we have to keep growing, right? We can't be stagnant.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to something I know we've talked about before. Um, we're storytellers. So these are all just tools and different platforms for ways to create your story or places to stick your story. Um, does it matter if it's on TikTok shot with a phone, or does it matter that it's a commercial project, shot with the newest red? Um, they all have their place. Um, you all have different needs for it. There's different timestamps for it, for like how fast you need it. Do I have to edit it on the phone? Do I got to do it this way? But we're storytellers, and that's kind of what you have to start with at a basis, is like, what story am I telling? Where does it need to go? What does my audience need to see? What perspective am I telling it from as well? Because um, I tell the story a little bit differently than somebody else might. The way you shoot it, the way you edit it, the way you write it. So it just is, what is my style? What is the way I'm telling the story? What is the platform for it? I lean a little bit more commercial for sure, in terms of like, very simple aesthetic, very television, I guess somebody would
Mm-hmm.
say. But um, it's changing, but it's still the same. And it always all circles back. And it's funny when, I was screaming at somebody about it the other day because I think I was paying for YouTube, a YouTube subscription. And I'm like, YouTube just became cable. I can't believe everybody's trying to cut the cord. And now we're back to exactly something else doing what cable did. And I think you just see that it's pretty much cyclical, and it's all the same. But you're right. You do have to stay fresh. You do have to innovate. Um, you can easily get aged out, uh, pushed out, but hopefully your relationships and your
There you go.
progress keep you in check.
Obviously, as a producer and a production company, owner, and for Keystone, we come to things in a different way because we've had experience in the field and in the office, and we make sure that we're taking care of our people. But that does not always happen when
It
we go
doesn't, but
out
I'm
on a shoot.
probably the wrong person to talk to about it because I've always pushed the envelope. I've
Yeah.
always stood on the roof. I've always leaned out of the
Hello.
helicopter. Um, I've,
Skied backwards
you know,
down a hill with the camera on your back in Utah. I remember distinctly saying, "He's
Kayak
going to
through the
get killed."
swamp with the camera, without any safety gear. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of a little bit, like I said, I play it loose sometimes when I probably shouldn't. So luckily, I've been very fortunate that, I haven't had anything major happen.
Hmm.
I know some
Thank
people
God.
haven't. Um, it's tough though. I think as I've gotten older, I've realized, man, I wish I protected my body more, just in terms of all of the crazy shit
Abuse.
we've done. Uh,
Yeah.
but at the same rate, I'm using this thing. I'm riding it
Yeah.
out to the end. I'm turning this body in battered and broken and used.
Well, let's talk a little bit about something that maybe not everybody knows about you. I mean, your closest friends may know, but maybe not everybody in the business. You are also a musician and have been in a band. Am I good to say the name, or do I have to
Sure.
keep it out?
No, go
The
for it.
Hairy Areolas.
Hmm.
Talk to me about that. I mean, you have so many really cool interests. You're investing in real estate, and you're a surfer, and okay, so you are in this band, Harry Areolas. You're actually working. We were talking earlier about Paul Martirano,
Hmm.
who was a stalker on not The Voice, on
American Idol.
American Idol. He got thrown off American Idol because he was in Paula Abdul's face. And you guys are nuts when you're together. And yet, if you met Paul and he's playing the piano in Atlantic City and dueling pianos, you would never think of him as being this like kook. But when the two of you are together, you're insane.
Oh,
Titles
it's
of
all
your
just
songs.
foul perversion.
Yeah.
All with love. That's the funniest part about it, is it all sounds pretty crazy, but as we've been shooting this documentary, you realize, you're like, wow, all this humor and filth is actually exposing how fucked up other people are, and how we're making fun almost of their hatred with comedy is kind of the idea.
When are we going to get to see that documentary?
That's a great question. It's been stalled because of the pandemic. We're waiting for some license and clearance issues.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the stuff we've been on, we've been going through footage, and uh, hopefully a year or two, it'll be all wrapped up.
Awesome. I can't wait. All right. So you're also into this really weird thing called corpsing. Can we talk about that in public?
Sure.
What the hell is corpsing? You have
Uh,
a freaking website? Like, what the fuck is corpsing?
yeah, it started as a joke between some of us where,
On a shoot?
yeah, well, when you're a photographer, you might be setting up the most beautiful picture. And then, the twisted side of me one time had said, yeah, wouldn't it be really funny or interesting if you went, remember, by the way, this is where it really circles back to taking pictures and getting film developed, and you get a picture
Yes.
back. And we were somewhere, I believe, in Arizona, and I got some film back, and we had seen something in the picture that we hadn't seen when we took the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, wouldn't it be funny if you ever got one of these pictures back and you're like, holy shit, there's somebody naked running through the background or whatever it was. So then we started setting up pictures where we would put somebody naked in there. And then we're like, well, it's kind of weird. And we're like, why don't we just make them like they're a naked dead body, which I know is twisted and sick, but the funny part is this is not the perverse side. It's more of just the how weird that is. We started hiding people in the backgrounds of pictures, and then it almost became a challenge with a group of us since we're all traveling all the time. And now a lot of celebrities, unnamed, some named, and a lot of people in the business wherever they are. Hey, there's this great waterfall in Iceland, and you'll get the first picture where he's like, wow, that waterfall's amazing. And then the second picture is somebody positioned somewhere in there laying down naked like a dead body was just dumped there. It's twisted, I know, but and then because we're in the business, we knew some people that was like, oh, you should make that a website, you should do it on social media. And then it kind of got some legs under it, and people have just been submitting them, and now I
You're
just get,
still doing it?
oh yeah, I get random submissions from people, just regular people, just doing that. And I think the more popular version of it was, I don't know if you've seen Steph Dies. Steph Dies has had really good success with it. She doesn't do it naked, she does it dressed, but she was written up in a lot of magazines. On the
So
flip of
she
it,
pretends she's dead in like all these photos?
everywhere, yeah. And then the other side of it is, if you ever look up an artist named Spencer Tunick, Spencer does these amazing feats of photography with massive amounts of naked people. It's phenomenal. I mean, it's crazy stuff, and a lot of activism and bringing awareness to a lot of causes. So
I have heard of that person. They have like these like meetups or something, and they're all naked and making a statement.
it's pretty cool.
Um,
Pretty cool. So yeah,
where do you see that corpsing website going from here? Is it just like a fun outlet? Are you going to do anything with it?
I think it
You
just
should do a
was.
documentary about corpsing.
It was just a fun idea.
Back to the relationships too, is when the pandemic hit, I had just finished, well, we had finished that Reels shoot and we were going into post, and I had just finished working on the dermatology series, The Gist. And so I was going into post, and literally they had just started talking about this virus, this thing, coronavirus. What I found to be really amazing, heartwarming, and just phenomenal is that as a group, you and your business partners, Daryl, Andy, Tim, yourself, and then all the people that work for you, you weren't willing to lie down or corpse. You actually rose to the occasion you locked in on each other and your relationships together to, obviously you were already streaming, but you wanted to pivot and find a way to continue to maintain momentum in your company. And you guys did an amazing job. Talk a little bit about pivoting and just being resilient in a very challenging, screwed up world that we're in right now, because it's not just about the pandemic. I mean, there's so much divisiveness. And yet you guys have this culture in your company where you're lifting people up all the time, the people that work for you, the people around you. It's really amazing.
Well, thanks for recognizing that. Um, you know, uh, somebody said I have a high emotional metabolism. So I think what I've taken that to mean is, hey, this thing is happening. Great. How I deal with it is up to me, but I'm not going to wallow in it. I'm going to move on. And I'm going to move on, in a positive manner and not sit back and wait. So it's also, you have to think a little bit forward in how are people ingesting things, especially in the media, and how are people working. And you could freak out, or you could be like, hey, people have been dealing with shit for a long time over the years.
Yes.
Just, figure out a way to move on, progress, stir the pot. And I think what we started doing is we started stirring as much as we could, calling people, talking to people. Where do you think it's going to go? What's going to happen? We should learn this. We should learn that. And I think we had said to everybody, we're like, hey, if anybody wants to take any classes, online classes, if you want to learn something, if you want to do something, now's the time to do it, because it looks like we're going to be locked in for a little bit. Let's try and figure out ways to shift and pivot what we do. And I think that just, though, comes from this business. That's daily on a shoot, whether it's, doing a stream or anything like that. You learn in this business immediately.
Yeah.
Hey, you come in here, you need to shoot this interview here. And then somebody comes in, you can't shoot in here, you got to go in there. You're like, holy shit, now I got to change this whole thing. Like, you deal with that.
You have to really be fast thinking.
Every day. And how do you deal with it and go with it? And
one of the really amazing things, Rob, sorry to interrupt you, was that you guys each set up your own home little studios. You're sitting in yours right now, which you have spent like 2 years in. And you rehearsed. You played around. Everybody took a turn being sort of, the actor or the talent. I remember Tim was in his car one time driving in down the road, talking about, the vehicle.
If you look at this industry, especially some of the specific things we've done with working on food shows or home improvement shows or whatever, and also working in with a lot of medical companies or drug companies, other batches of entertainment, that we just kept asking, well, what the hell else would somebody want to try? Would somebody ever want to do a car review live from their car? And could you pull it off? Technically, let's figure that out. Hey, could you pull off a remote recording, by sending somebody a package of gear and dialing into their computer, and they don't have to do anything because they don't have the technical prowess? Yeah, let's try it. Like, we just kept saying, let's try it. Let's try it. Let's try it. And then every time we tried, we told people we were trying it. So it's kind of that, and I know we really haven't touched on it, but it's a business thing, because I love business as much as I love television. The idea of marketing and business, where it's like, tell them what you're going to do, tell them you're doing it, and then tell them you did it. And we were doing that everywhere. We're not the best always on social media, but we know boots on the ground, pick up the phone, somebody a text message, send somebody a link. And I think we just got to the right people, and we're connected with the right folks, that somebody was like, hey, we need that. Hey, we need that. And also we recognized the people that weren't, because we called everybody we knew and said, hey, can you help us with this? What are you doing? And some people were like, I'm not doing anything. I'm waiting. And it's like, well, sink or swim. You know what I mean? And when you confronted with that, I was like, well, I'm not going to sink. I have to figure something out. And luckily we had an amazing support system. We had some amazing minds. and everybody was willing to experiment and try something new. And it's been really fun. It's been some days ripping my hair out. Technology is tough.
Well,
Um,
doing like 15 live streams in one day or some craziness.
we
I
have
mean, I
done
know
that.
you really have been spearheading that whole, I would say it's now a division of your company. I mean, it really has taken off, the whole streaming. And I know you're really good friends with Amanda Freitag, who is an amazing chef. So you love working with her. And didn't you experiment with this whole thing with her at first as well?
Yeah, she, once again, another relationship which helped us tremendously. She had been doing some in-person experiential work with an agency called Zinc, and she introduced us to them, and they were pivoting as well from completely in-person to virtual. And she was like, "Hey, these guys do this, you guys do that, you should talk." And we finally had the time to talk, and then basically we now are working with them, in their Zinc Live division that we are handling, their production. So it's been, once again, an amazing relationship, spawned another relationship, you know,
Exactly. And
and
that was the whole point of asking you about relationships, because it really is. And without marketing and tons of social media, you guys still grew your business. And I'm not saying, that you shouldn't do all of those things, but really word of mouth and our reputations, where you've heard that statement, your reputation precedes you,
yeah,
right? I mean, it's a
I'm sure.
very, as big as this industry is, we all know it's incestuous to a certain extent.
Yeah,
And if if you don't develop these relationships and maintain them, it's a disservice to you.
yes. Um, yeah, I'll go back on it all the time and say, well, we need better social media. We need better marketing. The way we combat that, though, is that we have become a pretty interesting tool in the box.
Hmm.
I know people like to specialize, but we specialize, as we said earlier, we specialize in solving people's problems. On all different kinds of levels, and a lot of them are technical. And that word spreads where somebody's
Hmm.
like, "Man, I want to do this," and somebody's like, "We should call these guys because they'll figure it out for you." And
Yep.
we do figure it out, whether it's integrating live drone shots into a stream, touring 100,000 square foot buildings live, um, how to shoot something remotely, how to weave together all different batches of software for some kind of, remote recording for a TV show, uh, whether it's some kind of installation for something, like we will figure it out. And that's, luckily, we work with a great bunch of people. So
You do. You do. Do you have a favorite project that you've worked on that you can say, like, hands down, that's the best thing I ever did? After that, kind of parlay into, you know, advice for someone who might be trying to break into this business.
I do not have a favorite project. It's a cumulative uh, batch of stuff. I've gotten to do a lot of amazing things and work with a lot of amazing people. And um, half of it I didn't even know I wanted to do or I wanted to meet. Um, and it's a level of pretentiousness when I talk because I've been exposed to some really fantastic things. Um, in terms of advice for folks, um, you have to want it. You got to tell people you want it, and you should figure out how to be the best at it, um, and figure out a way to get it. And you can't sleep. I don't sleep very much. I don't sleep very well. I've got a very intense schedule for myself, for growth, for learning. Um, just keep growing and learning and acquiring as many experiences as you can. If you're going to look, as we're looking back and reflecting on it all, I used to be a clown. I was literally a professional clown. My parents let me play with a video camera, from the stuff with KYW to an improv troupe to buying a television station with that guy Gary White in
Oh, I
Kentucky,
forgot about
to
that. Right.
working with your husband early on, to all of the travel, to all of the producers we met, to all the stories we've told. And it's like, you could never plan how all of that comes together to say like, oh, this is why this guy could get that done. Um, so you gotta have an amazing batch of experiences and just keep going. I'm a weird mind that I like the technical as much as I like the storytelling, as much as I like the business aspect of it. So your husband said it best, early on, what do you want to do? Right? And then I asked you, and then you asked me. We keep asking, what do you want to do? I'm doing it. I just want to be available to do cool shit. And having a production company leads me down that path. And like I said, a great network and great partners. Because as much as I don't say no sometimes, it's very rare my partners say no. And that's who I lean on to be able to live this way is we all support each other. So, and we're all different. That's really the
So
interesting
different.
thing.
I love that though, when you think about it, and I talk about that with people, because you're like a puzzle. You all fit together so beautifully. You're just all so different and have amazing stories. And like I said, I see it as a puzzle. You all fit together so well. Where do you see yourself like 5 years from now?
That's a great question. I know I will still be out and about in the world, creating opportunities and telling stories. Who knows with what gear, what platform, and in what capacity, either as a director of photography, but the entrepreneurial spirit in me means I always have a lot of irons in the fire, and I'll continue to have more. So as you said, some production, some real estate, some philanthropic, some just a variety of business opportunities. I'm just open.
I can't wait to watch and see and be part of it as well. And I am going to get you to go to UPW with me to do a
Okay, I
live
can't
event
wait.
with Tony Robbins. I think you'll like it.
I know I'll love it. It'll be fun.
Well, Rob, I'm going to let you go because I know you're busy, but you know how I feel about you. I love you. And I just am so proud and so happy to watch you just continue to expand and blossom and bring us all for the ride. And I thank you for that.
Thank you. I love you too. I love you too.